Hey guys, how's it going? My name's Joe. Welcome to recap number 98 for SNES is Life. Today we're going to be discussing Nickelodeon Guts, No Escape, The Pagemaster, NHL 95, and Newman Haas Indycar Racing. Let's begin. First up, Nickelodeon Guts, licensed based off of a TV show that was a. I kind of want to call it American Gladiators for kids, but it wasn't that physical. I mean, it was a lot of physical, but not American Gladiators, right? So it was kids competing in different sports themed challenges. You know, generally it was rad in the 90s. So everybody was like hooked up to bungee cords, jumping off of things, bouncing around. You can see here I'm trying to it's a lacrosse stick and you're trying to throw the ball, I guess, ball, puck, whatever. Yeah, lacrosse is a ball, right? They're trying to throw it into this net as they bounce around. There's another version of this. This is a basketball where you're jumping up trying to get the basketball in the hoop. There is an obstacle course. At the end, when you finish up, you know, depending on I think who's in first place, you get to run up the aggro crag, which is like their final thing. So it's this big mountain you climb up, and you have to hit all these buttons on the way up the thing. And then at the top, if you make it to the top within the time limit, the person wins the trophy, which is a piece of the aggro crag. It's just this big glowing plastic rock, basically. Here's the obstacle course you can see coming. The game looked okay. The animations for the bungee sports were really good, like really well done. Like the bounce off, the bounce up as you got climbs back onto the platform. You know, even the animations here on the obstacle course, while not, I don't think as good, are pretty laudable. The music was okay. The sound was all right. The biggest issues with this was just gameplay. Kind of like American Gladiators, the bouncing sports were very. Depending on what person you picked to be as the player, the bouncing sports were very hit or miss. Like once you zeroed in where your character needed to press, hold, and release the buttons, you could pretty much guarantee it was going to go in. The obstacle course, less so. I felt like the jumps were very, very poorly implemented. You can see me dropping save states there to make that jump. And it just felt loose isn't the word for it. It felt like there was too much damn gravity, which I guess in in the real world there is a lot of gravity that would just drag you straight down. But I found the obstacle course significantly less entertaining. I gave it a thumbs down. You know, it just wasn't great. As a two-player game, I bet this game would be a hell of a lot more fun. Just because you're competing against a buddy to see who can get the more points in the bungee sports or who can get a faster time. But as a single-player experience, it was pretty lackluster. I wouldn't recommend going out and finding it. I remember the show fondly as a kid, but Nickelodeon Guts, that's a thumbs down. Next up is No Escape. This is a licensed movie tie-in of a movie I've never heard of, never seen. Basically, your character goes and fights a war. You're supposed to kill some people that don't deserve to be killed, so instead you shoot your commanding officer. They send you to jail. Jail sends you to basically the island of misfits, where they're like, look, you're on the island, ha ha ha. And you can't escape from it, and probably the other people there will kill you. And there's different like tribes and groups. But essentially, you can see my inventory here. I'm not really sure how long this clip that I pulled is going to have the inventory on screen. You go to this village, and you trade your items with other villagers, and then you get these items, and then you go into this screen, and you can combine them. So like, oh, I see what I'm trying to do here is make my Molotov cocktail. So you can take like a soda bottle and a can of gasoline, and your baggie to hold your Molotovs in, and eventually you create Molotov cocktails that then you can use as a weapon. Yeah, the game has very little in effect to help you. The manual did not walk you through. I mean, it told you how to create things, but it didn't tell you like what created what. It really just left you up to your own devices to experiment, and that kind of sucks. The run and jump in the game is not amazing. It is kind of cinematic. The animations look decent on your main character. Most of the animation in the game is not that good. The bad guys have a constant respawn rate. Like, you walk off screen and come back on screen, they're coming back at you, which is pretty irritating. Not all the time, but some areas, yeah, they just don't stop. Eventually, I assume you can get guns and things. I don't know. I didn't get that far in the game. It's just was not fun. And maybe that's because I suck, or maybe it's a lack of signposting or assistance from the computer. Like, give me a hand. If you're going to give me 90 items in this game that can be used to make an assortment of things, then one of the items that should be available is like recipes. Like let you find a scrap of cloth. It's like, oh, if I combine this and this and this, I'll get this. And that would have helped a lot, but it didn't. And so it left me struggling trying to figure out what the hell to do, especially because there are some items in the game that you're going to need, or at least that's what I read, because, again, didn't get far in it. I got 2 levels in, essentially, through the opening area, through the first village, and then into this section. It's a rough go. I appreciate the concept of experimentation that they wanted you to experiment with, but it just kind of fell flat for me. That's a thumbs down on No Escape. Next up, NHL 95. Sports. If you've been watching me for 98 recaps, you know that sports is not my high suit. I'm not a sports guy. NHL 95 plays just fine. I couldn't start a fight. The game kicked the shit out of me for the most part. Like, it's a hard one. Like, the game doesn't pull punches. It kicked my butt pretty much every game. That said, it was, it animated well enough. It looked slightly better than the previous NHL in 94. I thought the ice looked better. I thought the sprites were a little bit bigger. It's fine for an NHL game. I mean, if you like hockey, then you'll probably like it. I'm not a huge sports guy. I gave it a thumbs down, but, I want arcade hockey. I want NHL hits. That's what I'm looking for, something violent and ridiculous, and without penalties or icings or anything else. The passing worked well enough. The shooting worked well enough. But yeah, it's a tough AI, and I'm sure that you could get good at it. I'm not gonna. It's not my bag. That's a thumbs down. Next up, because we haven't had enough licensed things, The Pagemaster, based on the Macaulay Culkin movie, where the kid runs into a library and gets sucked into a book, and the 3 books turn into characters and help him, and there's adventure and fantasy and horror. So currently I'm in the horror world. This is a platforming game. You do run across the book characters in their areas, but they're not away. You can pick them up and use them basically to throw at enemies and kill them, which is kind of ridiculous. The momentum in this game was kind of slippery. The jumps, because of the momentum, were also kind of slippery. What really bothered me about this game, because most of it was good. The animations were fine. The music was fine. Every time you turned left or right, the camera adjusted to the left or to the right, and it became very, very disorienting and very annoying. And this is not the first platform game I've played that's done that, and I don't know why they would make that choice. Just center the screen on my character. I don't need the camera to move, but they do, and it's worse for it. That said, this is a pretty basic platformer. It's single hit kills unless you're grabbing power-ups, and every power-up you get, which you can have multiples, when you get hit you'll lose a power-up instead of dying. But this game throws a lot of dudes at you and a lot of what felt like pretty cheap gotcha hits, and I didn't appreciate that. You can jump on top of some enemies to kill them, but not all enemies. You can jump on top of these books that fly across the screen to kill them, but not the books that just sit there and jump straight up and down. You can't jump on those. Those will kill you. And so it really just irritated the shit out of me that way. Here we got to the second area, this adventure world. It's pirate themed, so you're running around on pirate ships and things. The pirates, some of them you can jump on their heads, some of them you can't jump on at all. Not that they'll hurt you when you try that. It just doesn't work. You can't jump on them and hurt them. So it was a functional platformer, but it just wasn't great. I didn't particularly enjoy my time with it. It had some neat concepts, but in the end I gave this one a thumbs down as well. They could have done better. And finally we get Newman Haas Indycar Racing featuring Nigel Mansel. Newman Haas, I guess, was a racing team in the mid-90s that did really, really well in IndyCar, along with Nigel Mansel being, I guess, their primary driver. This does have a very deep simulation mode where you can tune your car and your drag and your gimbal or your camber and your fins, and I didn't do that. It has an arcade racing mode, which is what I did. Now, the arcade racing mode, here we're looking at single player. This is a two-player split screen game if you choose to play it that way. The graphics, I think, were okay looking. Everything looked fine. The load in of things coming on the side, like you'll see probably some point here, some buildings will load in as I drive by. There's not a lot of those. The scenery, aside from what's on the track, is pretty slim. The cars look okay. The animations look all right with the wheels in your hand. I mean, the car's driving past you, kind of a scaling. They all looked okay. A big point that this game gets, and it is points, goddammit. It's a sports racing game, and it has music. And you can choose to turn it on or off. But like some games are like, do you want the music on or off? But it doesn't matter because the music's only in the menus. And then in the game, it's just engine noise and the bumping of cars. And that's stupid, and I hate it. This game had music. It gets bonus points for that. Other than that, the AI was pretty strong. Like, they drove better than me in general, which is weird because when I did my qualifying laps, I would pole position, or like top 3 position to start the race, and then in the race they'd pass me pretty quick. I did finish first, second, third a couple times. What I will say is that the hitboxes feel a little weird on your car. Like, it seems like you're not going to hit the car in front of you, and then you hit them. And there is a damage represented by that car up in the top right of the screen, but it's not like a wreck or a spin out. Instead, it does like the old arcade race where you hit them and it just bumps them forward faster than you, which is great when you're in front and they're hitting you, but sucks when you're hitting them. So there's that. This goes back to the hitboxes being pretty wide. The track seems wide, but once you get 2 cars in front of you, it's not wide. And it feels very much like they achieved the whole, the feeling of them trying to block you from passing them. And whether that's intentional or it's just a side effect of the big hitboxes, I don't know. But it felt like the computer was really intentionally boxing me in behind them, And I think that's kind of neat because that is kind of the way racing works. You try to not let people pass you. Not intentionally making them hit you, obviously. In the real world, you don't want to wreck. But in this game, very much, they were like, no, you're not going to pass us today. And I did that a couple times, too. Like, I would get in front of people and veer back and forth to try and force them to hit me when they tried to pass me. And it would bump me forward. So that's a legitimate strategy. I am not a huge racing guy, but you have to give props to a game that has music. And I did enjoy this. I played this for my hour, and I didn't hate it. I didn't feel that it was ridiculously difficult, and it looked good. It sounded good. It played well. I gave this a thumbs up. There are other racing games I would choose over this. I would go Top Gear all the way. But compared to a lot of Formula One and IndyCar racing games that are on the system, I actually enjoyed this one. There's a lot of different tracks to play. So if you like IndyCar, go give this one a whirl. Not a bad game. I'm sure it's cheap. And that's it for recap number 98. We are coming up to the 99th set of 5 games I have. It's got some real bangers in. We got Sonic Blast Man 2. We got Pocky and Rocky 2. There's a Ren and Stimpy game in there, which I know is going to be god-awful because they all are. But, we got a couple decent ones coming up, thank God, because the last couple of sets of games I've played were not great. A lot of thumbs downs, a lot of things not worth trying. But they exist, and so there they are. Anyway, you guys, I appreciate everybody sticking with me for all these years at this point. We're making progress, coming up on 500 games. And yeah, looking forward to just wrapping the thing up in about 3 more years or however long it takes me. So thank you guys. I appreciate you. Have a good one.